Alright, so I think enough time has passed where I think I can really give The Last of Us Part 2 a good shot without any stupid gamer nerd bias. You see, back in 2020 when The Last of Us Part 2 was in the middle of its hype season, something major kind of happened if you remember. But when this game was first announced, of course I was hyped. For me, and even my sister as well, who played the Part 1 remaster alongside me back in 2014, I saw it as the pinnacle of storytelling in a video game with gameplay of equal quality. I'd never realized that a game could provide such emotion, intrigue, and just general interest in all its stories and characters. So for The Last of Us Part 2 to get spoiled online prior to its release was really disappointing and devastating for Naughty Dog, and included within the leak was just a tiny tidbit of information about a particular character who may or may not have played an important role in the first game, and this particular character dying relatively early into the game. But now, fast forwarding to 2024, I think I'm finally ready to give The Last of Us Part 2 a go. We have the enhanced PS5 version, which is, okay, nice, that's a good check. And for my most important criteria, call me cheap or not, but shit, I need to wait for a sale. And it's not the best one, but it'll do. So I think we'll have a little fun today and we'll play through The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, form our own opinion, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to let me know in the comments down below because it's something a little bit different. I've never really done a video like this, and also be sure to let me know with the like and subscription with notifications on. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers and I don't plan on stopping there. But with all that out the way, let's finally get into and experience The Last of Us Part 2 for ourselves. We open up with the recap of the previous game, with Joel and Ellie leaving the Firefly Hospital right after Joel cleaned them all out to save Ellie from a surgery that would have killed her, but potentially saved millions of others. Ellie is still unaware of Joel's actions at this time, but how would y'all react if you were in either position? Personally, if I was Ellie, I'd be fine with sacrificing myself for the greater good, but on Joel's end, I can't really say he was wrong or right at the same time, but what do y'all think? Fast forward 4 years later, and we finally take the reins as Ellie, who will be the main protagonist in this game. And the one thing I must say is that this game is very graphically impressive. But it's here where we're introduced to two new characters, Jesse and Dina, and it's really cool to see in this game how there's some resemblance of society returning to normalcy, or whatever normalcy can be had. But after telling some kids to get good in a snowball fight, our group heads out on an expedition, and it is then that our attention is turned to another character who we find out goes by Aki Abby because this chick looks like she curls freaking 65-pound dumbbells because shorty is cut the fuck up, man. But we do take over her as the main character because she is going to be the other playable character in this game alongside Ellie. Jokes aside, after a short walk on a trail, Abby and crew spot the settlement Ellie resides in, and through their conversations, it's obvious that Abby has her own motives as she's really eager to lure a specific someone out of the camp. We know this because she's much more adamant than anybody else on going down there and trying to see what's up. The rest of her group wants to stand clear, but it's obvious that Abby has her own set of motivations. But this is also where we get our first taste of combat, and of course it's very similar to the previous game, but more refined as a sequel should be. But it's still very weighty and realistic, so you have to be mindful when you take your shots. But our time as Aki Abby was short-lived as we switch back to Ellie and catch up with what her group is doing. And there's something I want to note about the dynamic of playing as these two main characters back and forth, but that's something we can discuss later on in the video when it becomes a little bit more of a relevant point. After a little patrol to our post with Dina, we find our way into a supermarket where the infected have taken over, and as a result, there's spores everywhere. And what this game does so well is just the overall ambiance of the world and these areas really makes you feel immersed in this post-apocalyptic world. And this is also our first time we have a run-in with clickers. If for some reason you don't remember these disgusting things, these are like the advanced stages of the affected where they can't really see and they mainly rely on sound, which is good if you want to take a stealth approach, but if you're really clumsy, they aren't easy to take down like the typical ones because one tap and it's GG's. It's right after this that Ellie and Dina get lost in a snowstorm and have to find shelter in an old library and grow house. We pick back up as Abby, salty as ever and ready for blood. Unfortunately for her, she's gonna see more infected than a college campus. However, her luck turns for the better when she's saved by no one other than Joel and Tommy, which turns out to be an intense scene as you all fight to escape. Luckily, the three of you do escape, and we're right back to Ellie and... Okay, let's leave those two alone for now. Abby, Joel, and Tommy seem to be having the time of their lives, and fortunately, they're able to make it back to Abby's camp in one piece, for now because... No!
All clear?
He's out. Put him against the wall.
Tommy! Get off me! Get off me!
And I just have to say this again, because it's moments like this where The Last of Us 2 is really at its best, because the performances and tension in the room can really be felt. But now that Ellie is done having her fun, it's back to reality because she's got to go find Joel and Tommy before it's too late. And unfortunately, it is too late, and I don't know how she saw the scene and didn't start letting bullets fly, because I would have asked questions later. But the moment was finally here, and this is why it's important to actually play the games before you form an opinion on it rather than just following online outrage, because initially I thought this was done just for mere shock value, and the leaks didn't help it in my case, but it was truly sad to see Joel go out like this so unceremoniously. But that's life sometimes. We don't always get the ending we want or even deserve, and objectively, Joel might have not been a person that was actually worthy of a happy ending. But how did y'all feel about the scene in Joel's death? Let me know, because it's definitely one of the biggest moments in the game, no doubt. In the aftermath of the situation, Ellie is of course adamant on avenging Joel, and you can't really blame her, and it seems like this situation hits her harder than anyone else, even more than Joel's own brother. And me, I'm not really a turn the other cheek guy, and in a post-apocalyptic world like this, getting even will be the only thing on my mind too, truthfully. But we say goodbyes to our beloved Joel and prepare to head out to Seattle on our quest for revenge. After a short in-game trek, we finally make it to the decontamination zone in Seattle, where we can explore the city and go beat Abby's ass, but as you can imagine, it won't be as easy as that. And after a bit of exploring, Ellie and Dina manage to find themselves in a synagogue with the hopes of finding gas, but no luck there, so let's go try our luck at the courthouse. So after making our way through the basement and a little short skirmish, we finally find some gas that should let us through the Fedra gate. And I'm just gonna have to go ahead and commend the graphics again, because the city looks amazing. And maybe it's just me, but I don't think every game needs to be an open world experience. And like, this Seattle in this game is a perfect example of having a large, open, explorable zone is more than enough in many instances for single player games. It provides just enough exploration without the need for any unnecessary open world fluff. But even exploring around was just fun, and the atmosphere of this world is done so well. We even have enough time for a quick song with our boo.
Leaves from the vine, falling so slow.
But that's enough of that. We gotta go get our revenge. So with the boo loving out the way, we can proceed to the Fedra gate for real this time, and into the Saravina Hotel, where the receptionists here are as rude as can be. But after entering, it seems someone's already beat us to here, and that someone was actually Tommy. Luckily, we're not too far behind and we can follow his trail.
Get the other! Don't lose her! Go!
And of course, it's the same group that killed Joel, the Wolves faction, but with the power of plot armor, Dina saves us just in time, but not at the expense of getting herself shot, but we got her right back. And it's time for a grand escape, which we eventually do. And one thing I find really interesting that enhances the immersion in this game is when you kill enemies, they'll often call out for each other and call each other's names, which I think is a really cool touch. But we made our daring escape, and it wasn't easy as we had to make our way through the entire QZ zone in order to find Leah, a wolf opposition who might have some information we're looking for. Which leads us to the broadcast tower, where someone definitely got here before us, and oh, we got a new toy too. And it looks like we finally get to meet Leah. And just our luck, but it's these intense moments where The Last of Us 2's gameplay really shines, but the stealth approach doesn't last too long for us, and we have to resort to shooting our way through, and then an epic pursuit occurs, but we're not out the dark yet because they're still on our ass, even in the bowels of wherever the heck this is at. And after an arduous journey through the subway, we finally make it to some safety as we regroup, and Dina isn't really happy that we kind of held from the fact that Ellie's immune to the virus. So Dina herself decides to drop that she's preggo, and man, this is so much drama, so let's just fast forward and give these two some breathing room. We play a flashback for a brief period of time as we go back 3 years earlier to when Ellie and Joel are exploring the wilderness, and
Oops.
and what a fun moment. But you know she was gonna get even, and eventually we see that Joel brings Ellie to a model T-Rex and into a museum in this wholesome moment. But it's back to reality, and we head out solo, leaving Dina behind, and it's back to business as we head deeper into enemy territory. in efforts to continue to track Tommy, and it won't be easy now because enemies now have dogs that'll sniff you out when you're not careful enough. And I'm sorry, PETA, I refuse to be dog food, but with some persistence and some luck, we make the most out of this encounter and carry on forward. As we navigate forward and deeper into the trenches of Seattle, we finally reunite with Jesse, who's actually been the one that's been causing this havoc the entire time. And one thing I do have to commend this game for is how reactive your companions are in the game and to the environment around you. But the most absolute insane chase occurs, and holy shit, I couldn't imagine being in this situation at all. Like, we somehow managed to escape and were able to make it back to Dina in one piece. After another brief flashback of Ellie and Tommy on a hunting trip, and a not so fun trip with Joel, we're back on the prowl to track the hospital to find Nora, who will tell us where Abby is, but of course, it's not going to be as easy as we think, as more infected and wolves stand in our way, and man, Ellie can't catch a break at all. We make our way through the sewers, but we aren't in the clear yet as the archery club is here hunting, but with the power of stealth and aim, we can proceed to the hospital, where of course, we can't expect to be alone here, right? Luckily, we're the main character, and after clearing the entrance, we finally get our eyes set on Nora, but nothing can be simple for us as we go on a wild goose chase until we're eventually stopped and forced to fight within the spores. But we get up out of there easily and catch up to Nora, who's not looking so good right now, and it only gets worse as she decides to not give us what we want, and we make it her last day on Earth. Day 3 in Seattle begins for us, and it's time for us to head to the aquarium, but nothing new. Ain't shit gonna be easy for us, but luckily we hit those. But after we overhear that Tommy has possibly been spotted, Jesse wants to help him while Ellie is set and focused on Abby, so they decide to go their separate ways and is back to focusing on getting to the aquarium. And once we're finally in, we come face to face with two of Abby's friends, Owen and Mel, and we don't do a great job of finding out where Abby is from these two, and to make matters worse, Mel was actually pregnant, and obviously this is gonna make Ellie and anyone feel some type of way. But Jesse and Tommy catch up to us and take us back to the theater, and it's back to square one, or so we thought as.
Jesse, stand up! Hands in the air, I shoot this one too.
Don't you do it, Ellie. Get out of here.
Stand up, now!
Don't you fucking dare.
I do have to say, Abby is a great antagonist because every time I see this chick, I just want to shoot her, man. But it's at this point we take over as Abby. Alright, I'm going to pause here real quick because to me, this is where The Last of Us 2 kind of loses me a bit. For the last half of the game, we now play as Abby and the events that lead up to her up until this point. And this was kind of my biggest gripe with the game up until this point. Maybe I'm talking for myself, but playing as Abby for the last half of the game doesn't seem so exciting to me. And I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I had a suggestion on how they could have made this a little bit more stomachable. But at least for me, I think that having play as Abby from the jump would have been better. If they were going to have you play as Abby the entire time, they should have made her out to be a character that you like and get invested in a lot more than to have her destroy the lives of her main allies just like they did to hers. I feel like this route might have been a little bit better, but I could also understand how risky it would have been to have a sequel of The Last of Us 2 and you play as another girl for half of the time. Oh wait, but for real, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Maybe I'm bugging. Do you feel like I have a point? But actually, let's play through this and see if my sentiments change after playing through her story. Nevertheless, we start off in a flashback, and the key takeaway here is just how Abby and her father are juxtaposed against Ellie and Joel, because Abby's dad was willing to sacrifice his daughter for the greater good, and Abby herself was willing to do so as well, but Joel could have handled that idea, and I can assume that if Ellie was given the choice, she might not have been as selfless as she thinks she was, just like Abby. But it's back to the present day, and by present day, it's day 1 in Seattle for Abby and crew before the climax and holy arms. But we're getting our stuff and regrouping with our friends and heading out to the range to test out the new AR we just got access to. Should be fun to test out in the field, and it won't take too long to do since we get ambushed by a bunch of scars until we eventually crash and enter in what looks like Superstore from Verdansk to scope out. And after clearing out a few infected, we make it out of Superstore and can buy our loadouts. Hopefully, someone gets a chuckle out of that. But the next big story beat occurs once we get to base and make plans to take out the scars. But Abby's more concerned about getting back to Owen, who's actually being accused of killing a fellow comrade. So she's gonna go out and search for herself because she knows she can find them at the aquarium. So we're full on pushing through a war zone of scars and infected, so we're going to be in for a handful of surprises, which one of them actually ends up in our capture, and just when things aren't looking too good for us, we're somehow saved. And after running for our lives, taking out old big girl, we're quite not out the dark yet because the two kids who saved us now ditched us and we're left alone to fend for ourselves against every threat imaginable. But just as I thought hope was lost, they didn't abandon us, and luckily we escaped that pit of hell, but we finally make it to safety and get some time to breathe and regroup, but not before we tend to the little girl's arm, whose name is actually Kiara, and the little boy's name is Lee. And this is where we see Abby's true nature, as she's actually just genuinely a good person, but in a world like this, you gotta stick by your peoples, and that's just what each faction does. But back to the main task at hand, and it's full steam ahead to the aquarium, which we finally make it to, but as you know, things can never be as simple as to getting into buildings. But Abby finally reunites with Owen and, nothing here to watch. Day 2 in Seattle for Abby starts off, and we make it back to our little friends, and unfortunately, Kiara's not looking too good, and her arm is so cooked that we have to take her back to the aquarium, where Owen and now Mel tend to her wound, and there's no good news for her because her arm is going to have to get amputated if she wants any chance to survive. So we're off to get what's needed for the surgery, and now that we have our sights set on where we need to go, we need to make it all the way up top to the bridge, which is the only way across to the hospital. And how much money for you to take this route? But there's only one way down, but luckily we have a new toy to help us out with that. It's not long after we make it to the hospital, and luckily Nora's there to help us because the wolves aren't so happy that we defected, and she's only able to give us so much help since the stuff we need is actually in the basement. And of course, the basement is full of infected, but that's not going to be a problem for Naughty Dog, you've made a true abomination with this one, and I'm deeply disturbed by this thing, but in true main character fashion, we prevail. And now that the nightmares can end, we have our tools and our getaway ride, and the effort was well worth it. Now that we're on day 3 in Seattle for Abby, it's Judgment Day, and this day really picks up when our friend Leave goes to go aid his mother, and it's up to us to infiltrate the Scars' home island to save this little boy from getting himself killed. But it would seem we were too late, as Leave had to defend himself from his attacking mother in what is a real emotional scene. Outside with his sister, his mom was the one who loved him the most, and for that to happen is
Rough, buddy.
But just when we thought we had a clean escape, our former faction catches up to us and takes out Kiara, or so we thought, because in her last breath, she sacrifices herself, buying Abby and Leave just enough time to escape. And this poor boy is just taking all the L's today, man. But you know, simple escapes are not possible in this game, so after traversing through a freaking war zone of seraphites and wolves, we finally make it to the boat, and our daring escape is over, and we return to the aquarium, and you know what that means. And you can't help but feel bad for Abby. This game really pins her out to be the villain, but she's honestly just been reacting to all the things that have happened to her. And now that she knows where Ellie and friends are staying, you can best believe she's gonna go get even. And we're back right where we left off with Ellie. But in this battle of the bastards, there can only be one victor, and after Leave convinces us to spare Dina, Abby and Leave decide to avoid revenge and leave. Right after this, we cut years into the future where you can see an older Ellie living on some ranch in the middle of nowhere with Dina and Jesse's baby living that sweet farm life. And I thought this was going to be a happy ending, but Ellie is obviously suffering from some PTSD, and you can't blame her at all really. With the lives they lived in this game, most of you all would have been dead during the initial outbreak. I thought this last bit of the game was going to serve as a nice conclusion, but Tommy luckily made it out alive. And he's not that excited that we decided not to go after Abby, or so we thought, because with the info that Tommy gave Ellie about Abby being in Santa Barbara, she can't let it go. And sorry baby girl Dina, but we gotta finish this job. But we actually pick back up as Abby, who's still with Leave, and after finally connecting with some fireflies over the radio, we're off to Catalina to link up. And man, some people just don't get a break at all. But this is where we catch back up with Ellie, who's finally made it to Santa Barbara, and it's not long after we catch up to what I believe is some fireflies up to some weird shit. However, we do manage to help those who were captured, and they let us know that Abby's at the beach, and it's not some sunny California beach you might have thought it was. But here we are, face to face with her, but Abby doesn't even want to fight anymore, and Ellie's dead set on a showdown, which is honestly the saddest 1v1 I can think of in a video game. Like, it was low-key sad to see Ellie kill her. Or so we thought. What would y'all have done in this situation? For me, it's really hard to keep a lot of hate in my heart for that long, and sometimes revenge isn't always the best option, but we finally return home, and sadly, Dina and Jesse Jr. have moved out, leaving us all alone. But we do get one final scene with Joel and Ellie, where she confronts him about what happened back in the hospital, and he doubles down on what he did. And quite frankly, I can't say he's wrong from his viewpoint, but sometimes the bigger picture needs to be accounted for, and Joel accepts that Ellie can't forgive him for what he did. We cut back to Ellie on the ranch, where she puts down her guitar for one final time, and just like that, we've reached the conclusion of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Overall, like I was saying earlier, this is why you play games for yourself, especially if you plan on sharing your opinion, because The Last of Us Part 2 was almost everything you can ask for in a sequel. The game expanded upon existing elements, the skill tree was simple enough, but provided enough upgrades to make it worth your time to work through it. The gameplay was exactly what you would needed from a game like this. The stealth encounters gave me more anxiety than I'd honestly like to admit, and their gore was really fun. And if you know me, bonus points for gibbing and dismemberment is like, I always like that. It always elevates a game in terms of realism in my book. The collectibles and notes were fun to pick up around the world, and they really do add to the element of this post-apocalyptic world. My main qualm with this game really kind of comes with the flashbacks, and while most do provide, good story background, I was kind of annoyed getting pulled out of the main story to play flashbacks at times, but I do think that's probably just a me thing. Another thing that I felt was quite jarring was playing as Abby for the last half of the game. Now, I did mention my initial thoughts about playing as Abby, but I actually did end up playing as her, learning her story and her background, because like I was saying earlier, she's really the victim in a lot of this. Like, a lot of the pain she caused was stemmed by Ellie and their group, and it was all pretty much reactionary. In a world like this too, that's to be expected. But that's gonna wrap up this video, everyone. If you stuck to the end, I absolutely love you. Comment down Aki Abby so I know who the real ones are. I've never done a video like this before, so I'm definitely open to suggestions, and just in case I want to do this type of style video in the future, so be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Also, leave a like and subscribe with notifications on if you want to see more of my videos, and check out the two you're seeing on the screen right now. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. But I'm out of here, y'all. Stay safe. Peace.